Welcome to the Lakus podcast. This is class number 6 in the discourse Nachamu Ami, and this is going to be the 5th class in chapter 45 in the overall book. And also this discourse Nachamu is the 12th discourse of the great book B'Shashagdimu 5672. All right, so we were learning in the last class how there are, in general, the entire revelation of Mochen. He's explaining how there is a downgrading of the Sphirot as in the attributes themselves, as they manifest in each world, they are greatly diminished. And he's showing us in the level of Mochen, at the level of intelligence, that real Mochen is an Atzilus only. But in Bria, in the lower three worlds of Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, which is the worlds of creation, even the God, first he said that the godliness of those worlds, the experience of the divine through the mind in those worlds are only through a mashal, through like a mashal, like a parable, which means excuse me, that one is perceiving godliness through something else, and not direct. And that already camouflages or hides, it doesn't give the crisp, clear understanding of the subject matter. Because whenever you're understanding something through a metaphor, which is a foreign entity, it's already watering it. The experience of the knowledge is already is radically different, is very different, let's just say. That's number one. But then he adding over here, and that we were learning in last class, is that in general, the entire experience of Mochen, of intellect, because he's challenged by the idea that we say Bina mekanana bekorsayo, which means that the realm of Bina is available in Olam Habriya, which is Korsayo, which is the world of the throne, which seems to imply that there is a Bina, a very strong Bina experience in Korsayo, in the world of Bria. So he's dealing with that by saying, true, but it's only chitzaniyas hamochen. It's the external element of mochen. It's not pnimiyas hamochen. Pnimiyas hamochen is only an atzilus. And let's see how all the points that he made. Number one, the bina in the world of bria is separated from chachma, compared to the way the bina is in atzilus, where it's before misham yipared, before the separation. So the chachma and bina are very tight. So even when you're experiencing Bina, which is understanding and grasping, it's very focused on the inner light and the inner point. So that's something that you don't have in Bina at all. In other words, the Bina itself is just pure Bina without the illumination of Chachma. That's already step number one, which is a very great downgrade in the Bina. Step number two, even that which the Bina is Bina, it's only the chitzonius of Bina, not the pnimius of Bina. I mean, even Bina on its own, it's also just the external part of the mochen of Bina, not the internal. Now, that idea that it's the external, not the internal, we explained in last class. I think there were 4 points. So let's go through the 4 points. Or maybe 3. Let's see. Point number 1 is the way he explains chitzonius. He starts with a very radical explanation of chitzonius, which means radical, meaning a very low level of chitzonius. But then he increases that even if it's deeper, it's still called chitzonius. And then he goes even higher, that even if it's deeper than that, it's still chitzonius, it's still external. So the 3 levels of chitzonius that he explained was as follows. Level number 1 is that the chitzonius of mochen is that when you're studying something or getting to know something, you are seeking just to know the qualities of it, how this will benefit you. That means you're not interested. One is not interested in getting to know the essence of it. One is only interested in getting to know its benefits for the person, which is very much an emotional element. It's not, you can't even call it an intellect. It's mochen, it's intellect, but it's mochen hashaychen alamidas. The primary interest over here is your emotion, is fulfilling of yourself. That's what emotions are, looking out for the self. And I want to know. I don't want to know you if I have no gain from you. I want to know what I can gain from you. So that's a very shallow level of chitzaniyas hamochen. And we can say that to some degree, as we're going to see, that the world of Bria, the creatures and beings of the world of Bria, even though they have great knowledge of God, there is that selfish motive over there of wanting to know how this will enhance their own existence. Then we can go even deeper, he says. Even if I'm interested, even if a person and one is interested not just in the mochin, the good of the entity, but rather one is interested in the essence of it. I want to get to know beyond your qualities. But the fact that I'm only getting to know it as it expresses itself, he says, Bilavushe hasaga. That was the point. Bilavushe hasaga means that it's through the garments of grasping. It's not seeking to get to know it in its pure state, which means close to the idea of being close to chachma, but very binadig, very much in its clothing and in its garments. It's not mamish, the concept of bina. I guess there is, because that idea that bina stands alone without chachma is something that he said as already as an earlier point. Now we're analyzing how within the bina itself there is the chitzonius and the pnimius. But this is what he calls levushe hasaga, garments of grasping. As we explained it last time, it's when you're not seriously willing to let go completely of yourself in order to get to know something by putting in all the effort that it takes to lose yourself, lose your preconceived notions and so on and so forth. You're holding on to the way you understand and the way we understand things, because the person himself understands it. And then based on that, I'm looking to see how this entity, if I'm probing something and becoming satisfied with seeing it express itself as opposed to getting to know it beyond its expression, means there's a certain laziness over there. And why is it lazy? Because I'm still a little stuck in myself. I'm not ready to leave go of myself. Even though I'm an intellectual, I'm holding on to my intellectual ego, maybe not my emotional ego, but my intellectual ego of how I see things. And that's why I'm looking for the easy way out, getting to know it as it expresses. And everything that expresses is already a stepping out of the thing as it is in its essence. So even though I'm not looking for the expression of it in how its qualities of benefits, that's already really coarse. I'm looking at it to get to know it for how it expresses itself for itself. But the fact that it's already an expression is external and not considered pnimius. Then he says, and we can say that as well in Olam Abriya. That's already, we might say that the higher creatures of Olam Abriya might be into getting to know Hashem for what God is, not thinking of their benefit. But even then, it's still slanted to self. Because he says such understanding leads to emotion. Understanding something for what it truly is leads not to emotion, leads to losing yourself. It doesn't stimulate an excitement in the self because there's no self there. I've completely let go of myself, and I'm curious about you. I'm curious about you completely without any attachment to self. That's when you're going into the pnimius of something. But when you're hanging out on the chitzonius of it, as we discussed in last class, it's still close to how eventually this impacts myself. Okay. But then he went and he took it even further. And he says there's even a higher level. And the higher level is more appropriate only when we're dealing with the divine. And that is, he says like this: even if I'm seeking to get past Lavushe Hasaga, the garments of understanding, and I'm probing to get to know something as it truly is, and I'm not being lazy. I'm probing until I can feel the soul of it, till I can feel its really essence, not the way it expresses itself. But if that which I am probing is God as he is manifest in creation, he's manifesting in sphirot, he's manifesting in definitions, so that's already considered chitzonius. Because what I really, in other words, I'm getting to know you, but I'm getting to know you, your body, not your soul. Getting to know your soul is deeper. In the case of God, it's getting to know Hashem as Hashem is utterly outside of any halbasha, outside of any enclothement in worlds. Not even a self-definition as Hashem self-describes himself as a being related to the world. But as Hashem truly is in his utter infinity, higher than the spheros, higher than Chachma, higher, Keser, pure infinite light. That's the real mochen. The real deep pnimiyas hamochen is to become to a state of absolute ayin, utter nothingness, and being dissolved into Hashem's being, where he leaves no room for anything other to exist other than himself. In a sense, I'm going to add the point over here of us doing this entire base study of this book of the Lukus podcast and this book I Am Bays is basically, as I discussed it right when we started the book, we're not learning this to gain something other than losing ourselves in God. That's usually when you learn, you're learning to seek inspiration. You're learning to gain some kind of, there's no gain here. It's just, let's get to know, it's Mashiach is coming and God is going to be revealed. What we're going to be doing then is we're going to be knowing God. Let's start exercising our ability to know God without any other motive other than just knowing Hashem. I'm using that as an example for this Inyan. And not even anything about God, just him. Obviously, we're exploring all the levels over here, but this is the idea. So this kind of a pursuit is Pnimiyas Hamochen. So in the world of Bria, even those that can get past the Levushe Hasaga, the garments, and are tapping and getting to know the Hasaga without the garments, to grasp it without the garments, are still grasping in where God is graspable, which means in the realm where he's enclothing himself into spheres. But to really melt into the Ein Sof, as the Ein Sof truly is above the worlds, or Ein Sof that's Lamayla Mehislapshus, beyond, they don't do that in the world of Bria. The creations of the world of Bria are incapable of that. The entities, only in Atzilus is there such a type of bittul b'metzios, such a type complete losing of self completely, and a drive to know the unknowable in a way that is going to obliterate the self completely. Okay, this is a little synopsis of what we learned earlier, and now let's read. We're going to continue inside. Okay. The klal is asaga de olam habriya yesh laimar. So the general grasp of the world of Bria, yesh laimar, we can say shazel b'bchinas hamochen hashaychen el hamidos. This is the mochen that has a connection to the emotions. It's an intellect, which means it's not pnimiyas hamochen. It's not mochen as mochen are for themselves, but it's mochen as it influences emotions. The Levad Zois, in addition to this, in addition to this, that the mochen of Bria, of creation, is different than the mochen of the world of Atzilus. In its essence, what do we mean by that? What we said earlier in the beginning of this, on chapter 45, and that is that every grasp in the world of Bria, it doesn't have direct ability to know the divine. It's knowing him through a parsa, through a partition. So it's always knowing him through, like we spoke earlier, through like spatial entity. Spatial entity, space, is a limitation and a construct of the world of Asiya. Remember, we learned it's up to the ninth Galgal, the ninth sphere, that we're stuck in space. The world of Bria is beyond that. Even in the world of Yetzirah, they're beyond space, like the angels. However, they're stuck in a construct as well. So whatever that construct is, a created a state of consciousness and ability of, and a reality, a created reality. And even when they know God, it's through the prism, or through the interface of creation. So that makes the mochen of Bria completely, essentially different than the mochen of Atzilus. But now he says, in addition to that, the very drive of the mochen, the very seeking of what the mochen are seeking is different. It's, there is an emotional element to these mochen. It's not pure intellect. By the way, it says that even that our Torah that we have today, all the Torah that we study and all of our mochen that we have today is in this level of mochen of Bria and downward, because all the Torah that we study today is the mochen that, and our avoda today is only the mochen that influences the midos. And that's why we only have when we conquered the land of Israel in the past, we only conquered a land of 7 nations, not a land of 10 nations. Only when Mashiach will come, we will take a hold of the land of 10 nations. The land, those other 3 is the Chabad, because only the time of Mashiach we're going to be so elevated to really live in a true intellectual world where we really want to seek God just for the sake of seeking God without any personal benefit whatsoever, which is the true quality of Mochen. And that's related to the 3 countries of Keni, Knizi, V'Kadmoni, which is Ammon and Moab and Edom, which are these 3 lands which are going to introduce true Chabad to the world. Our Chabad now is the Chabad of the Midos, not the Chabad of the Chabad. Okay. So he says, now he's saying that that's also in the highest celestial worlds, in the worlds of Gan Eden, they're still stuck in their emotions. The general power of the mochen of the world of Bria, are mochen that have a connection to the emotions. More specifically, there is difference. Why? What do we mean by that? He says, in general, the 3 lower worlds, Bria Yetzir, the entire Bia, the entire Bria Yetzir experience is only mochen that has a shaykhs to the midos, not pure mochen. We have intelligence down here as well, but there's in that itself, there's gradations. So he says the idea that there's gradations, there's not just one uniform level. The mochen that is not shaykh to the midos, that is above the midos completely, and the mochen that has a connection. It's either you're in the pure mochen or you're in the convoluted mochen, the mochen that has that supports the midos. He wants to prove that that's not the case. It's not just an either or. There's many levels in each level. So he says, for example, even in Atzilus, we differentiate between pure mochen and mochen that has a connection to the midos, which means even in the sphirot of Atzilus, there is pure Chabad, Chachma bin Adas of Atzilus, which is pure mochen of God, and then there is the mochen that become the mochen of the Ze'er Anpin, the emotions. The Ze'er Anpin themselves have their own intelligence, which is called the mochen of Ze'er Anpin, but it's not the Chabad mochen. So you see that even in Atzilus, there is a concept of pure mochen and mochen that support midos. And of course, the mochen that support midos in the world of Atzilus is not in any way limited and constricted like the mochen that support midos that we're talking about in the world of Bria, because we're talking about an utterly divine realm. It's on a complete different level. But he's just saying that because through that we understand that it's not just one level mochen that's connected to midos, it has many levels. Shaharei, he says, Shaharei gam ba'atzilus, because even in Atzilus yesh b'chinas mochen be'etzem, there is real mochen, essential mochen, or mochen hashachan el midos, that mochen that have a connection to the emotions. Rak b'klolus in yana mochen, but in general, when we paint with a broad brush, we will then say as follows. Yashloima, we will say that the general level of the world of Bria is mochen that has a connection to the emotions. And the world of Atzilus is a world dominated by pure mochen, by pure intelligence. Yashloima, the Bria and the world of Bria and Hashaych and Alamidos, the mochen that are there have a connection to the emotions. Hanikra mochen de yanika. That's called the mochen of nursing. In Kabbalistic terminology, there is in Kabbalah there is a concept that when a child develops, it uses the child that there's 3 levels of mochen. There is where there is the state of ibor, the state of pregnancy, where there's just emotions that are not influenced by the intellect at all. Then there is mochen de yanika, the nursing stage, where after the baby is born, where the midos, which are the limbs considered the main structure of the person, or the spiritual psyche of the person, which are the emotions, are nursing, like the baby nursing from the mother. The mother is Bina. And the nursing, even though it's intellect, the mother is giving intelligence to the child. Probably one of the greatest period of time of intellectual growth in a child is when they're nursing. What do I mean by that? Even though when you stop nursing, you're still very unintelligent, but the amount of knowledge you've gained during those 2 years from being a 1-day-old baby to when What you learn speech, you learn to recognize so much of the information, so much gigabytes, so to speak, of fundamentals that we don't look at when we get older because we take it for granted, is learned in those 2 years, and it's connected to the mother's milk, which is the bina. Bina liba, the breasts of the woman are in the place of the bina. So first of all, the woman herself is bina, especially the woman as a mother, and milk coming from her nursing, from her birth, is b'makam. The Chazal say that Hashem made the dad and Hashem made the breast, b'makam habina, by the heart, where the bina is. Because bina, even though we're associated to understand it as brain, but it's also related to the heart, especially these type of mochin, the mochin that have a shaykhis to the midos, the bina is supporting the midos, which is the heart is the bina, which the heart is the midos, which the mother is giving the child, is these mochin. And it's mainly to develop an emotional balance in the child, to get a general sense of what's right, what's good, what's bad, and so on and so forth. Then, after the child gets weaned off and starts eating bread, and bread is intellectual powers, like chita, as we know, is related to das. Then we start growing real pure intelligence, which is mochen, which creates a maturity which is above just pure intellectual growth, unrelated to the emotional development. So what he's saying is that in general, the mochen that when we say Ema Ilah, the supernal mother, Mekanina, she dwells Bikursayo, in the throne, which is the world of Bria, we need to understand that entire thing is mainly nursing. It's mochen diyanika. It's the mochen which is meant to, which the sphirot, the worlds, all derived from the sphirot of the world of Bria, are being nurtured by intelligence, by divine intelligence, but the nether element of divine intelligence. The midos are yonik, are being developed. They are nursing from this level. And that's also called mochen dekatnos. It's called immature mochen. It's called small mochen because the mochen degadlos, the great expansive mochen, is when you have pure intellect. Now you'll say, wait, why is it that the world of Bria, where do we see that the world of Bria is only experiencing mochen diyanika, mochen of nursing? And the answer is something we discussed already. I mentioned it in last class or maybe 2 classes ago, class number 4 or class number 5. We mentioned an interesting, phenomenal thing that in Tanya, when he talks about where our mitzvahs are elevated, to which level our mitzvahs are elevated, he differentiates and he says that when you do mitzvahs without any love affair, without any wings, it stays in the world of Asiyah. When you do in our material physical world, when you do mitzvahs with instinctive love, that means you awaken your natural love to God, but there's no intellect there. It's just natural love that each and every single Jew has to Hashem, love and fear of God. When you awaken that, the mitzvahs then, the mitzvahs soar up to the world of Yetzirah, which the world of Yetzirah, then you're elevated your mitzvahs to a higher world. And then if you do your mitzvahs with intellect, with emotion, but emotion, excitement, and drive that is driven by intellect, by a person's understanding of study and understanding of godliness, that elevates the mitzvahs to a higher rank to the world of Bria. What are we seeing from here? And yet, he says, only the service of tzaddikim, the greatest tzaddikim, who serve Hashem with utter bittul b'metzias, not even through intellectual, not through emotions of love and fear, but they don't have any feeling of self at all. They're nullified completely. Those mitzvahs rise in the world of Atzilus. So what do we see from here? That not with understanding that we emphasize the world of Bria. On the one hand, we're emphasizing the world of Bria as an intellectual world. But on the other hand, we're still keeping it in the emotional realm. We're not speaking of pure and experience of intelligence. We're speaking about excitement, emotional excitement that comes from intelligence. So it's the intelligence that's serving the emotions. And that's what he says. That's the reason why we say that in the world of creation, is love and fear, emphasizing the love and the fear, which is the emotion. However, they're an elevated emotion. Sichliim, they're intellectual emotion. It's not just a pure like an animal emotion that's instinctive or impulsive. It's an emotion it's a sophisticated emotion. It's emotion that's developed through reason and understanding. Well, that is moichen, that's midos that are upgraded by the mochen, which is what happens to a baby during the 2 years. When they're born, they already have the capacity of an emotion, but there's no sophistication there at all. The nursing period makes the emotions to some degree intelligent emotions. And Perek, as stated in Tanya, chapter 39. And these are the emotions, habam, that come, mahabina, from understanding, vadas, and knowledge. Ubatzilos. So where do we have pure intellect and a pure intellectual experience, real mochen, that we can truly say is intellect for the sake of intellect, that it's an atzilus, p'chenes mochen de gadlus. That's called mochen de gadlus, which over there, it's beyond the emotion completely. It's just pure, utter bittul. You've got one, because again, emotion is the opposite of bittul. Even when you're loving God like Avram Avinu, it's called yesh, something. Moshe Rabbeinu, for instance, is considered higher than Avram because Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't serving with love. He was beyond love. He just didn't exist at all. He was utterly in a state of absolute self-effacement for God without any self at all. Avram was still, to a certain degree, living in the world of emotion. Like it says, Avram's quality was love. Okay, so that's the difference. In that tzaddikim gedolim, their avoda, who serve Hashem in this level, is in the world of Atzilus. But everyone else, notwithstanding the great intelligence, it's a emotional serving intelligence. V'olam haYetzira. Now, the world of Yetzira, what would that be then? And what he makes over here is that if we say that the world of Bria is the most nether level of mochen, it's the mochen that is just nursing the emotions. It's the intellect. It's the mochen that's just serving the emotions. So then, what is the world of Yetzira, which we said before is a place where our mitzvahs go to when we do mitzvahs just instinctively? Does that mean that there's no mochen there at all? Is there no mochen there? Mochen doesn't arrive there at all? Is there no intellect? He says, no, there is intellect. But that's even less than the intellectual emotions that we spoke earlier. Let's see what he explains. Olam haYetzira, and the world of formation. Ha'ikr, they're the dominant p'chenas hamidos. There, it's a world of emotions. Bria is a world of intellect. It's just what type of intellect? An intellect that serves the emotions. And therefore, the emotions of that world are intellectual emotions. The world of Yetzira is a world of pure emotion. Now, however, it's a world of primary emotion. Is there intellect? V'hainu p'chenas ruach, which is also called, we know in Yetzira, Bria is called Neshama. Neshama is mochen. But the world of Yetzira in general is called ruach, spirit. Spirit is emotion. He says, don't think that there's no mochen there. And obviously, because if we have intelligence and our feet are planted on physical earth and we're living in our material, of course there is great mochen in the world of Yetzira. However, in general, what is that level called? There is mochen. However, only what has a relationship, a very minuscule type of intellect, a very diminished intellect, only with what can direct the emotions. Hold it. But didn't we say that that's the mochen of Bria? That Bria is a world of intellect that guides the emotions. So he's going to differentiate and say, no, there's a big difference. The emotions, the intellect in the world of Bria is fabricating the emotions, is actually nursing the emotions, developing them in a really, and adding, building up the emotion to be very intellectual. The emotion of the world of Bria, the intellect of the world of Yetzira, the intellect as it applies in the world of formation, it's keeping the emotions in check. It's and kind of guiding them, but not not forming them, but guiding them, keeping them in certain boundaries. And he gives the example. He says, as a person gets older, and the more we study, the more we learn, we create new emotions, which means we create desires that we're not necessarily born with, that we're not necessarily instinctively inclined to, but as we grow older and we study and we learn and we expose our mind to more elevated aspects, it elevates our consciousness and creates within us certain drives and aspirations that are intellectual aspirations, right? Altruistic, call them aspirations. But let's forget about that. There are certain natural instinctive emotions that we're born with. For instance, the emotion of the passion for food. Okay, we're all very at a very early age become aware that we want food. So as a tiny baby already needs food and it cries when it has to eat. As a child gets older, it wants food as well. And as we get older, we experience, and even when we're 90 years old, we still have a craving for food. Unless we're a huge tzaddik that is completely dumb, but you know. However, so even though this is really just instinctive emotion, let's call it midos tivius, it's a very natural emotion. It's not an intellectual emotion. Yet, there is a difference between the desire for food of a 2-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 30-year-old. Hopefully, when we get older, our choices and our desire in the food gets more refined. And we're not going to call it intellect. It's not intelligence. It's still a basic desire for food. But you're craving more, hopefully more refined food. You can think of something other than French fries and hot dogs. You can desire a finer wine, finer foods. That means that there is a touch of intelligence. What changed when you grew older? Your intelligence grew. And when the intelligence grows, it uplifts the emotions, even the instinctive natural emotions. And so it is in all the instinctive elements of life that growing up creates a certain guidance in these emotions, even though we're talking about basic emotions, not emotions that are created and developed by the mind. So that would be the difference between the world of Bria and the world of Yetzirah. In the world of Bria, the intellect is so strong to create powerful emotions. It's still about emotions, but it's the intellect forms and creates the emotions. The content of the emotions is the intellect. In the world of Yetzirah, the intellect over there is just a guide to elevate the emotions to be more refined. Like he says over here, what has a relationship to conduct of the emotions. Just like we see, there's a difference between a minor and an adult, even in natural instinctive emotions. The adult also is drawn after nature, after natural things. But it's not like a minor, not like a child. Because of the one's intellect, that affects bahamidos in the emotions, they should be conducted with the guidance of the wisdom of the intellect. But it's still not the higher set of emotions, which is what we call the nursing. Even though, of course, the nursing makes it seem like very young and and we're saying the nursing stage is the world of Bria, but just understand the relative, it's relative. These moichen are only, they're not moichen hashaychem el hamidos. It's not intellect that has a relationship to the emotions, rather intellect that steers the emotions. It keeps them kind of balanced, or it keeps them in the proper lane from becoming completely corrupted or immature and so forth. And then he's going to contain, and how about the world of Asiya, the lower world, where we, the material world, what kind of mochen of God come down here? Also intellect, but only intellect that is related to to artistic design or whatever, create it. We're going to speak about that in the next class. Let's leave it over here. I don't want to go any longer. And okay, Be'ezus Hashem, tune in for the next class.